Tottenham are set to announce Paulo Fonseca as their new manager in the next 5 days. Today, we're going to look at his tactical, the way he plays tactically, his recruitment, his philosophies, everything you need to know about the manager as he is set to replace Jose Mourinho at Spurs, the very man who is replacing him at Roma. Like I said, we're going to talk about everything you need to know about Paulo Fonseca. You've got the latest headlines down there below you, the latest odds to my left as well. So it's going to be a good stream, maybe a bit longer than usual, but we're going to talk everything we need to know. If you are new to the channel and you want more content like this, including the Tottenham Hotspur Transfer Talk series, which will be coming back very, very soon as Tottenham looks set to make this announcement, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I upload, and that will keep you up to date with all of Tottenham's news. Hit that like button on the stream as well if you're looking forward to this analysis, to this view of what Paulo Fonseca will bring to the club. Before we do that, let's welcome a few people to the stream. We got a few channel members in early. We got Shauna Blaney, very good to see you here as always. Mr. K here as well. A lot of usuals there as well. We got Simon Cohen, Sweaty Cockerel coming over from the Cheese Room pod. Wayne Bonner, good to see you here as well. Dan, Scott, all the usual faces, thank you very much for tuning in. Wayne says, is it a done deal or still negotiating? Right now, it is not a done deal. They're still negotiating. You see the latest rumours there from Alistair Gold just below me, or from Fabrizio Romano, said they are still in talks today about a 3-year contract for Paulo Fonseca. Fabio Paratici, he said, has signed that contract and he will be at Spurs until 2024. Fonseca is very, very close to joining him there. Again, loads of people in here. Paul Markey, good to see you. Tony, Jacob, David, Lost Galaxy, Adam, Shubham, all the usuals. Thank you very much for tuning in. So what we're going to do first is take a look at Paulo Fonseca and his tactics. And in his first season at Rome, he often shifted between a 4-2-3-1 and a 4-3-3 tactics that he used with Shakhtar Donetsk in the Ukraine, where he won the double every single year he was there, and on top of that he won a Super Cup, so 7 trophies in 3 seasons. We're going to look mainly at his tactics in Rome, the most recent ones he's used, and ones that I think, as I'll talk a little bit later in the stream, that could really, really suit certain players at Spurs. I tweeted out yesterday, for those who follow me on Twitter, his use of Brian Cristante in the centre-back role could be one that would suggest that maybe Eric Dyer will be more of a solid fixture in our team. Hopefully that isn't the case, but it could very well be. So we'll be talking about that, and basically why I think these will be what he brings into Tottenham, and why it might not be the worst appointment in the world. I know a lot of Spurs fans getting really worked up about all of this, but look, there's nothing to get too upset about yet. We don't know enough about him. Hopefully at the end of the stream we will, and then we'll see where we lie. So while I'm getting the tactics board ready, Mr. K says, Matt, your background looks different. You've moved. I have moved. I've moved out for the summer in a very, very different setting. Don't have the stadium behind me. Instead I had a red board over at that side. I say never red, but there's nothing I can do about that now. I'm only renting. But yeah, okay, look, let's dive into this. And like I said, it is mainly a 4-3-3 that Paulo Fonseca uses at Roma. And we're going to be talking a bit more about the kind of players that he uses in those roles, mainly Leonardo Spinazzola and Rick Karsdorp as the fullbacks. You've Jordan Vertu in that left centre mid role, and the front three of Edin Dzeko, Henrik Mkhitaryan and Pedro. Again, looking at the kind of players that could fit into that role at Spurs as well. It's going to be very interesting, so please do stick around for this, because I've put a lot of research into this one. So hopefully it will be enjoyed. Just want to get this viewer count back on stream, just so we know how many people are watching. They build up from the back very, very well. That is something that Roma have done very well in this. The way Fonseca plays, it's a very possession-based football, which is a massive change from what we've done throughout the time of Jose Mourinho. We like to have the ball. You know, one thing that Jose often said, it was one of his main philosophies, main principles, is the team who has the ball has fear. Well, Paulo Fonseca has a very different view of things. He likes to play with the ball, and that 3-4-3 often becomes a 4 at the back when they are building up from the back, as that centre back, as we said, which is usually Brian Cristante, pulls out to join that right centre back, and the goalkeeper steps up to join that defensive line, effectively making it a 4 and giving them that extra option as they do try to build out from the back. It's something Fonseca does use very, very often. Another way he does like to build up, that centre midfielder, the left centre midfielder, which is usually Jordan Vertu, will drop back into that space of the left centre back as they push up right along that left hand side. Leonardo Spinazzola, one of Fonseca's signings at Roma, become a very, very important part of their play and the way they the way they work up from there. We got Paul Markey with the €5 super chat, says Tottenham Way notification press announcement 9 p.m. tomorrow. Well, could that be Paratici? Could it be Fonseca? I'm hoping there is an announcement at 9 p.m. tomorrow. It'll be disrupting my my watching of the European Championship. So, Paul, thank you very much for that super chat, and let's hope we do see something at 9 p.m. tomorrow. But this is another way, like I said, that they do like to build up from the back, and it's not always the most effective way, because you can see it leaves a massive gap in the middle of the park. Now maybe this centre midfielder could hop in here, and you could have the kind of shoring things up like that. But it is the main way they do it is that left centre midfielder Jordan Vertu dropping in there, allowing the left centre half to push on, Spinazzola then to push on as well, and they work there and try and build up that left hand side. Brian Cristante, like I said, in the main centre back role, is such an important part of the way they do like to build out, and they brought him in from, I think it was Atalanta, as a centre midfielder. And these are the kind of comparisons I'm making to Eric Dyer, and we talk a lot more later about the different types of players and how they fit into this. But Eric Dyer is just so similar to what I'm seeing from Cristante at Roma, and he's that ball playing centre back. Now all three of their centre backs are very, very comfortable on the ball. You're looking at players like Gianluca Mancini, Marash Kambula, and another name which is escaping me at the moment, but they're all very, very comfortable in possession, and that is something that we would want to see Spurs do. Jamie, please do not spam the chat. Fonseca is not yet a done deal. They're still in negotiations, but anyone spamming the chat will be banned. So he likes to build up from the back, and Cristante is a very important part of that. He's got a wide range of passing, can play it into Mkhitaryan, Dzeko, Pedro, completely bypassing that centre midfield position. But as we'll see in a second, they like to work things a little bit better, kind of passing it through the lines, in a similar vein to the way Antonio Conte builds up his play at his various teams. But this is a role I feel Eric Dyer could be in next season, and it may not be Fonseca's first choice in that. We're looking at potentially not having the biggest budget in this transfer window. Maybe he will be forced to keep Eric Dyer in that role, but Cristante has done extremely well in that, and it's not just his passing range that he can use there. He's able to step up from the back as well, moving into almost a central defensive midfielder role, making it a 2-3-2-3, which is a very strange formation to say out loud, but those two wide centre backs stepping inside and covering him in there as he can work up with the ball, allowing the midfielders to push on. And you'll see again as we work further in, there's so much space in this team for the wing backs. For Spurs, Spinazzola could be Reguilon, Karsdorp on this side, could be Doherty if he's still at the club next season. Potentially, this is Matt Doherty's way to becoming a success at Spurs by having having that wing back role where he can be much more attacking and more similar to what he played at Wolves. And a few people there asking why not Toby Alderweireld in that role. And the main reason I was thinking is Eric Dyer, that central midfielder, as Cristante was, kind of stepping back in, and as Alderweireld pushes on to his latter years, look, we don't know for sure if he will be at the club next season, but kind of needing that recovery pace if he's here trying to maybe pass that ball into Ndombele, Lo Celso, Højbjerg, whoever it is. If he's then loses possession, does Toby Alderweireld have that recovery pace? And he doesn't quite have the experience of playing out from the back like Eric Dyer does. Now, I would hope that we do get a different centre-back. Joachim Andersen is a name that's being mentioned, and Gianluca Mancini, who was actually at Roma, is one that's been mentioned by La Repubblica at the moment. It could be someone else, but if we're looking purely at the squad that is in place at Spurs right now, I think Eric Dyer is the best suit to that. Well, I wouldn't want him to be. I think that is maybe what the views would be inside the club. Killian Kenny, good to see you in the live chat as always. Thanks so much for tuning in. And that is what Cristante brings to that team. A very, very important part of that. Now, like I said, he does have that passing ability to really play the ball long straight into that front three, but they do like to pass it between the lines. And Jordan Vertu is a very important part of this team. And look, we'll touch on recruitment later, but something that Fonseca has in common with Conte, and arguably with a lot of Serie A managers, is they like to bring in Premier League players who are perhaps past their best or who have had a bad time in the Premier League and want to move on, and he makes them very successful. You're looking at Vertu in that left centre mid role, the front three of Mkhitaryan, Pedro and Dzeko. We see this a lot, and that is maybe where his recruitment could kind of fail him a bit at Spurs. But back on the tactic side of things, that left centre mid dropping in, and the front three always playing in a diagonal line. There's a lot of variations in the way that front three play, but passing that ball between the line, zipping it into feet, turning and being extremely progressive. They can pass it around at the back, but when they try and make that move forward, it is at times very, very quick, and they can really break through those lines at extreme pace, which will dislodge the opposition team quite a bit. And this is the way they would play typically against those high pressing teams. If we're looking back at this in Brian Cristante being able to either pass it out from the back or step up and play like that, that's typically how they play against those weaker teams. But then against the quality teams, they don't play that long ball, they don't risk anything, they keep the ball and they pass it between the lines, between the high press, and can very, very quickly get beyond those lines and have a very good attack, because as we'll see in a second, that front three plays very, very narrow, and this is something I'm potentially excited to see at Spurs with Heung-min Son on the left hand side as he's set to sign his new contract. Then on the right hand side, could it be Gareth Bale, Lucas Moura, Eric Lamela, or a player that isn't at the club yet? Whoever it is, playing that really, really narrow front three to allow those fullbacks a lot of space to bomb on. And Fonseca is a master at that. He really is. Spinazzola and Karsdorp, like I said, very important parts of this team. And almost everything, let's say 90% of things within that front line is to make that space for the fullbacks. And I watched a video on Tifo Football. Again, every video or article or tweet thread I've used to research will be linked down in the description. But Tifo Football said they're right up there with the entertainers of Italy in alongside Atalanta. Now, Atalanta have been among the highest scorers in Europe for the last 3 or 4 seasons, and we're in the top 2 again this season. I think only Bayern Munich actually outscored them. And Tifo Football put these guys right up there as the entertainers. They scored 68 and conceded 58 in the Serie A last season, which very, very sort of eerie similarities to their stats in the league last season, along with Spurs. They won the same amount of games. They won 18, drew 6, lost 12, and scored 68, finished 7th, the exact same as Spurs, which is very weird. But Holly, good to see you there in the live chat. Thanks for tuning in. This, having that front three, the left winger and the right winger, pulling in really, really narrow is crucial to the side as they allow those wing backs to bomb on. And whether they're going to keep possession, like we'll see in a second, they can move it backwards and start to build again, or they can be whipping those balls into the box. They're very, very talented players. Even Holly saying Winks to go, that would be lovely. And Winks is a player that absolutely, under no circumstances, will fit this team. Winks will not work in this team whatsoever. We need Højbjerg and Daniel Lascelles, so that kind of midfielder to really work in here. Look, you could argue Winks wouldn't work in any midfield, but especially in this one. Now, Edin Dzeko is pushing on towards the end of his career, having a very, very good time in Rome. He's been among the top scorers in the Serie A for a few years now, which wouldn't exactly be expected as he kind of struggled in his last few years in England. But his understated passing ability is something they use very, very well, and this is something that Harry Kane, if he is at the club next season, could be very, very important in doing, by him dropping deep and picking up these spaces and allowing those players to run beyond him in Mkhitaryan and Pedro, and either flicking that ball on, or like I said, coming deep and threading those balls between the centre backs or between the full backs to put his teammates in on goal. Dzeko has been very, very good at that. Kane will be very, very good at that. And those wingers in Mkhitaryan and Pedro running beyond the lines, well, Son, Bale, Lucas, Lamela, whoever it is, could be extremely adept at that. And that could be another route to goal for Spurs as we move into next season. But again, the similarities between what this team does and what Spurs could potentially do is very, very interesting to me. Now, like I said, Jordan Vertu is a very important part of this. And another tweet I put out yesterday was about this. If you're not following me on Twitter, it's at MattHaysTHFC. I'll be tweeting out this entire tactical thread either later tonight or tomorrow if you want to, I suppose, be more accessible to anybody. But Jordan Vertu making those late runs from midfield is proven very, very effective for Roma. He had his best goal scoring season last year with Roma, and in his entire career, he's 28 years of age. He's of course played in the Premier League with Aston Villa, but his best goal scoring season with Roma by playing in this position. And Lorenzo Pellegrini is another player that can play in that position. Another player Spurs are being linked to, and by kind of combining what Pellegrini and Vertu do for this team, I think right there you have the perfect position for Ndombele or Lo Celso to play in. Kind of the player who is formerly that number 10, but has to be playing a bit more deep lying of a position in this Spurs team. The ability to make those late runs, the ability to be that playmaker, to be that goal scorer. Look, as TGR says, it is poor man's Conte. A lot of this, Jason says the same. A lot of people actually saying this is a poor man's Conte. It is to some extent, but I wouldn't necessarily take that as a bad thing, because we really wanted to see Conte, and a lot of these systems and tactical little nouses are very similar to Conte. And just because Fonseca isn't that big name doesn't mean those same things aren't going to work, which I think is where Spurs fans are really ruling him out, that they haven't heard the name and thinking, well, it's not good enough for me. I understand the concerns and the worries with that, but I don't think that's enough to completely rule him out as a potentially good manager for Spurs. Now, again, this is where Ndombele and Lo Celso could fit in. Vertu making those late runs in. It could be Dzeko flicking that ball on, or it could be the wingers kind of pulling wide, opening up that space and slipping the ball in the inside channel, and Vertu getting his goals, getting his assists, whatever it is. I'm really excited to potentially see Tanguy Ndombele in this position. And to some extent, I was kind of struggling to see where Pierre-Emile Højbjerg would fit into the side, because there's no enforcer, there's no powerful, strong midfielder who's there simply to break these things up. But when Ndombele or Celso, whatever, who makes that run of Vertu, all of a sudden you need someone here kind of patrolling this space and allowing the kind of safety and the stability in this area of the pitch, because like we see, there is a lot of space there with the fullbacks going to be bombing on as well. I'm sure you'll have some progression of the centre backs as well, which you will see in a second, kind of pulling wide. But you need someone in there to patrol that space, and that is that is where Pierre-Emile Højbjerg could be absolutely crucial to the Spurs team as we begin to make that, hopefully, that transition into more attacking football. That could be Højbjerg's role. Now, another kind of alteration or addition, I suppose, of how this front line play, and I think it will be flipped at Spurs rather than this way. So you have Henrik Mkhitaryan, the left winger, dropping into a number 10 playmaker role, and you have Pedro, the right winger, moving on here, running beyond the lines again, looking for that flick from Edin Dzeko, or the ball going back into Mkhitaryan and maybe playing that pass in as well. But I think at Spurs, this will be flipped the other way around. When you have, hopefully it is Heung-min Son making that run in there, and if we manage to keep him, Gareth Bale kind of dropping into that playmaker role, where he is able to pick out that pass, the little ball over the line, or even where he's able to try his luck from range, which we know he definitely can do. So again, another very interesting variation of the way Roma do set up that front line. Ones like all of them could really fit in as a very good way for Spurs to play. Now, the one last thing I was going to say, like I said, the centre backs, very, very important in the way Fonseca plays his attacking football. You have that absolute overload in the middle of the park with Mkhitaryan and Pedro pulling in narrow to support Edin Dzeko, whether they're going to be both running beyond him or Mkhitaryan dropping into that deeper role. Then you've Veretout on the right side of midfielder who, well, they would like it to be Nicolo Zaniolo, but the way he's been injured in recent years, he hasn't quite had as much game time there. Ali says, sorry, man, I've caused Wings chat. Look, any Wings chat is good because I know it's going to get a lot of engagement, so no worries about that. Holly says it's the class video. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Sam making a good point there about Højbjerg in the last position there that we had. If he is going to be patrolling that area, saying Højbjerg is awful at receiving the ball in those areas, and he's not the best ball player. He's an incredible footballer, but in terms of being on the ball and picking out those passes and things, he's not entirely the best in the world at that one. But I fully take on that point, and that will be a concern going forward. But look, as Roma overload these central areas, the wing backs are so important and have so much space created for them, where they can really bomb on into these further attacking areas and be able to to cross those balls into the box, whether it's into the run of Dzeko or Karsdorp on this side making that ball in either way. But when they are in possession back here in these deeper positions, the one thing that they have no fear of is playing that ball backwards into these two wide centre backs who pull out into those wider positions. Oh, thank you very much for subscribing. Who pull out into those wider positions and open themselves up to receive that ball. And that ball will go back there. Then all of a sudden they revert back into that almost fourth to back sort of system where they can either work out like that or the centre mid dropping in, and it's back to square one, and they start to work it up like that again. But the idea of not trying to force anything or not wanting to be as quick as you can in every single attack will be a change to Spurs, because last season it was simply, oh, we have the ball, we better score. Whenever we had possession, we needed something to happen. We needed to create a chance or to cause trouble for the opposition. But in this Fonseca team, they take a step back, play that ball backwards, and they keep possession. Shreyash, thank you as well for subscribing. And they build it up from there. And this is where it is more possession based than Jose Mourinho. Now, defensively, there are a lot of worries, and we're going to touch on the negatives because there are quite a few of them in the latter stages of this video. But he builds up really, really well. He keeps possession. He has these very, very precise and very definite tactical ways of getting beyond the lines, of creating space for those fullbacks, of utilising the best abilities of that front line. And again, there's a lot of players here within this system that really, really do work for Spurs. A lot of sort of little tidbits that would work for Spurs, and that's what I'm really excited to see. And that's what I think people need to give him a chance. They need to give Fonseca a chance, because just because we don't know about him doesn't mean he's not a good option for Spurs. Now, he's not the best option. There were better options for us to get, and we missed those. Whether it's Antonio Conte or Mauricio Pochettino or whoever you thought it was, he's not the best option, but he's not a bad backup option. And again, I will reiterate, the fact that this deal was done so quickly and that Fabio Paratici identified him as the man that he wanted, whether that was before or after Conte, this is who Paratici now wanted, and we went out and got him. And you could argue the best managers and the most successful managers that Spurs have had in recent years haven't been our first choices. We didn't want Mauricio Pochettino initially. We were moving for Louis van Gaal. We didn't get him. We got Pochettino, and he was the best manager we've had in decades. Even going back further, we brought in Jack Santini with Martin Jol as his assistant. Santini was sacked after 3 months, or he left after 3 months, and Martin Jol took over, and he did a great job at Spurs. Even Juan de Ramos went on and won a trophy for us. So just because he's not our first choice, just because we don't know everything about him, isn't a concern. In some ways, the fact that we don't know much about him could suggest the Premier League teams and managers don't know much about him. So it could be a different proposition and a more difficult proposition to come up against him next season, and you don't know which way that's going to go. There are positives in this, but there are also negatives, which again we will touch on in a second. I hope you enjoyed that the sort of tactical preview, bringing up that board as well. Please do let me know if it's a good idea to utilize these in videos in the future. Darren says, is he an attacking coach? He's not the most attacking coach. I wouldn't explicitly call him an attacking coach, but he does play possession-based football and tries to play attacking as much as possible. Now, out of possession, how do Roma play? How did they play last season? They've used a very high line, which is very different to what we have at Spurs. And again, one that I'd be concerned in playing with the players that are currently at the club. You're talking Eric Dyer, Toby Alderweireld. Even Joe Rodon doesn't have as much pace as you would like your centre-back to have. Maybe Jaffa Tanganga in that right centre-back role could be a better option there. He's got more comfortable in possession as he's played at right-back this season. Davinson Sanchez has that pace, but he's a useless player, so hopefully he won't be there. But I'm going to go through a thread on Twitter a little bit later that kind of shows potential managers for or potential centre-back targets for that, including Joachim Andersen, who it is looking more and more likely that we will get. Alaric David, thank you very much. I'll make sure to, and Paddy as well, I'll make sure to keep that board in more and more. Now, in terms of pressing, Roma play a very man-orientated press to smother progressive play using triggers. And again, a lot of this courtesy of Tifo Football. The video will be linked down in the description below. But they don't like their opponents to play that progressive football, so they smother them. They don't go all-out pressing like we have in the past. You know, whoever has the ball, you go and press them. And, you know, it's Kane will press the keeper, Son go out left, Lucas out right, whoever it is. It's a lot more structured than that. And they use those triggers. Now, those triggers could be, you know, the ball going out to the left midfielder or the left back, then all of a sudden you could have Rick Karsdorp as the right-sided right wing back. You do Nicolo Zaniolo as the right centre mid and Pedro as the right winger. All three of them pressing into him and forcing that ball backwards. But when that goes backwards, crucially to the centre backs and the keeper, they don't go all out to press that. They kind of regain their energy. They keep their breath, and they don't want to, you know, as we saw there at Roma, the way they pass through the lines, they don't want to become victim to that. Because if you go all out press, you have this style that Roman play or Sarri ball as it's become known that can easily bypass that. It's a lot more structured, and not only does it save that energy of this team that, you know, we would argue is one of the unfittest teams or the least fit team Spurs have had for quite a while, and a lot of the time ill-disciplined. I think that is something we could benefit from. Now, if that press is bypassed in any way, they become very, very compact in the centre of the pitch, almost transitioning into a 3-4-1-2. So you have that typical back three, the four across midfield, and the right wing back, the two centre mids, and the left wing back. But then that right winger or left winger, whoever it happens to be, would sit in front of those, and the striker and the other winger was sitting at two. Whether that's, you know, forcing the centre backs wide in their possession, but it becomes that 3-4-1-2, and they're very, very difficult to break down in the middle of the pitch. Now, maybe Spurs have been similar to that. We have been quite often hurt on our wings, especially in games against Manchester City and Chelsea this season. So maybe that is not the best thing. Maybe it's a continuation of what is at Spurs, but that is how they play. Now, they're extremely effective on the transition. When they get that ball, if they get it high up in their press or whatever, like that, they're gone, and they can really hurt opposition in that way. And I suppose that could be something that could be a proper way for Spurs to break teams down, because we've been so effective this season on the transition, especially in the first 6 months. They had the second most shot and goal creations from defensive actions in the Serie A last season, just showing how effective they are in playing those quick balls and in breaking out from the back as quickly as they can. Now, defensively, like I said, they weren't great. They conceded 58 goals last season in the Serie A. They've conceded over 100 league goals throughout the 2 seasons that Fonseca spent at the club. So last season, their 58 is 13 more from Spurs, 13 more than Spurs, which is not great. So you're looking at why could this potentially happen? Why could they be so leaky at the back? The possession-based football, if they do have someone like Brian Cristante really stepping up out of that defence, could they be simply outnumbered if teams do manage to get the ball off from there? Rob, thank you for subscribing. Well, that could be one of the reasons. A simple one could be they're not coached well defensively. Maybe that isn't something Fonseca is good at. We had the complaints under Jose Mourinho that he didn't do enough attacking training. Maybe Fonseca is the other way around. Maybe he focuses too much on getting those the front three in sync with the wing backs, getting that midfield perfect, but Verratti making those runs, that he doesn't coach them enough defensively. That is a very realistic suggestion or solution for all this. Now, another one is one that is kind of out of his hands, and in some way, if you are looking at a long-term manager, one that is probably worth it in the long run, and it's the young centre-backs he has there in Marash Kumbula, Gianluca Mancini, who is 25 but relatively inexperienced, and Roger Ibanez as well. Very, very young, inexperienced centre-backs. They're not going to be they're not going to be the best performers defensively. They're going to be prone to individual errors, which is a big part of Roma, as we will see in a minute. Maybe that is a part of that. And look, again, we could just come back to the fact that Fonseca could be a very just a poor defensive coach. Now, a few other things I want to talk about is something I mentioned quite a bit in terms of what Pochettino had at Spurs, and one of the very attractive things from Eric Ten Hag and his time at Ajax that I thought could be something he could bring to Spurs. Maybe it could be similar with Paulo Fonseca, and that is the balance between youth and experience in that team. And it's very risky with things like this. You have to get it absolutely right for it to work. And Fonseca probably has failed to do that with Roma this season, with them finishing 7th. I think their worst finish in 7 seasons in the Serie A. That is an issue, but you have these players like Brian Cristante, again, a very important part of the team. Nicolo Zaniolo, who has been very, very unlucky with injuries. In Marash Kumbula as well, another centre-back working within that team. And you have that experience, which is a lot more players. You have Edin Dzeko, Chris Smalling, Jordan Vertu, Leonardo Spinazzola, Henrik Mkhitaryan, Pedro. A lot more of that experience in there. And maybe he needs a bit more energy in that side. Maybe he needs a more experienced centre-back, but a more energetic midfielder to make these things work. But it's a good idea, and it's a philosophy that I really like, because it got Ajax to that semi-final of the Champions League with the youth of David Neres, Danny van de Beek, Frenkie de Jong, Matthijs de Ligt, Andre Onana, mixed with that experience of Dusan Tadic, Daley Blind, Klaas-Jan Huntelaar as well. That's something I'd really love to see at Spurs, and I feel as though Pochettino had kind of started to build that within maybe that 2016-17 season, when you had Dele Alli, of course, very, very young, very exciting player. Eric Dyer, not really young in terms of age, but in that experience. The same with Harry Kane. Heung-min Son really breaking into the team for the first time, and then more experience in Bertongen, Lloris, Rose and Walker. I'd love to see that actually work properly at Spurs, and Fonseca could be the manager who tries to do that. Whether he'll be the manager who does do that is a very, very different question. There's one philosophy and one. Stuart Benson has become a channel member. Stuart, thank you very, very much for that. Really appreciate it. We are going to have a members call-in show very, very soon on the appointment of Paulo Fonseca. So welcome to the Championship member, and please do make sure to keep an eye out for that. Anyone else, if you do want to become a channel member, you can hit that join button down below. Starting at just £1.99 per month. We will have member call-in shows the whole way through the transfer window and throughout next season as well, on every single watch along. If you are enjoying the stream, make sure to give it a like. Let me know that you enjoy these videos, and to do more of them, subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. And if you want to guarantee your comments are read out and discussed on stream, please get in a super chat using the $ right beside the live chat video, or live chat button. I'll stop what I'm doing, and I'll discuss your comments straight away. And it is a good way to support the channel. But Vitor Frade's tactical periodization makes absolutely no sense on the base of it. But essentially what it means is, on the training pitch and on the pitch as well, like that, physical and technical work comes together. So the entirety of football is based on the football. That is the be all and end all of it, which is a crazy thing to have to outline and emphasize. But we've had Jose Mourinho for the last 19 months, so it may not be exactly fresh in everybody's mind. Now, having said that, tactical periodization is something that Jose Mourinho has been known to use in the past as well. Andre Villas-Boas. It's essentially something that used by a lot of Portuguese coaches like Paulo Fonseca. And Tifo Football explain it as working with the ball at all times conditions players to respond to situations as they would in a match context. It aims to make players more comfortable on the ball and at greater ease using it in situations of high physical stress. And it's worked for Fonseca at Roma. Those centre-backs, as young as they are extremely comfortable in possession, and their stats in terms of pass success rate and the progressiveness of their passes is very impressive. And I'm sure this plays a big, big part in that. And in terms of passing through the lines as well, that is, I would imagine, a very important part of that. So by working with the ball at all times on the training ground, you have all of a sudden these situations in games where maybe Davinson Sanchez, who's extremely fit, is an incredible athlete, but not the best footballer in the world. And he may be the fittest player in that team. He may be able to outrun everybody else if you're doing laps of a pitch or sprints up and down. He may be able to do that, but he may not be accustomed, and he may not be kind of ready for a situation where he's out of breath. Maybe he's just chased Aubameyang 50 yards back. Lloris gets the ball and he rolls it out to Sanchez. He's absolutely exhausted. He has the stress of Aubameyang pressing him from one side, maybe Tierney pressing him from another side, and he might completely panic. However, by using this on the training pitch, all of a sudden, from everything that Sanchez has done on the training ground, he is ready for the situation. And it sounds weird to say, but by combining the physical and technical side of things on the training ground, it absolutely increases and improves the ability of the players in those situations on a pitch when the two are combined within their decision making and their ability and all that. And it's just a very interesting thing. And look, I could do a whole other stream on tactical periodization. There are whole books written about it, and we may do that in the future. But just thought I'd mention, interestingly, Mourinho uses the same, but perhaps Fonseca is simply just better at using it. And like I mentioned, those ball-playing centre-backs, a very important part of his team with Brian Cristante, the progressive runs from midfield with Jordan Vertu and Lorenzo Pellegrini, and the wide forwards coming narrow in Henrik Mkhitaryan and Pedro. I'm not going to dive too much into that again because we spoke about it quite a bit on the tactical side of things. And here's where we're going to talk about the similarities between what Roma want to do and Spurs players that could fit those positions. We mentioned already quite a bit with Cristante and Eric Dyer, Leonardo Spinazzola on that left-hand side, and Sergio Reguilon, a player who, with his form, I would doubt Real Madrid are going to bring him back. Of course, a lot of that could change with Carlo Ancelotti coming back into the club now. But Spinazzola, one of Fonseca's first signings at the club, I think spent something like £32 million on him to bring him in from Atalanta. And Reguilon has had a poor season at Spurs. He's had a poor opening season. It started really well, and he was really good in the early stages. When we were playing well, he was playing well. But it's no coincidence that as soon as we regressed into more defensive football, I'd say after that 3-3 draw against West Ham, that is when Reguilon, with the further we went back the pitch, the worse Reguilon played. He is not a defensive wing back. And look, this entire thing could be applicable to Rick Karsdorp and Matt Doherty on the other side as well, because remember Doherty's debut against Everton, he was unlucky not to bag a brace. He was very attacking, he was very effective in that game, but these wingbacks, like we mentioned on the tactics board, so reliant on these wingbacks with the midfielders and the wide forwards creating that space for them. Spinazzola and Karsdorp are crucial to this, and Reguilon and Doherty could really turn their form around at the club if they are, I suppose, trusted, first of all, in these positions. We know Fabio Paratici is already working on getting players out of the club. Matt Doherty could be one of those because of how poor he was last season, but if he is given that chance, you have those players who can be really effective out there. And I would love to see it happen. As an Irish fan, there's nothing I'd love more than to see Matt Doherty succeed at Spurs. Right now, I can't see it happening, but I would love to see it happen, and this could be a route for him to do that. We mentioned under Antonio Conte, he could really thrive. It's a very similar system under Fonseca. James Watson there says big fan of Spinazzola, and a lot of people are. He's become a mainstay in that team, and like we said, a very important part. At times when they have that centre midfielder dropping in to kind of unbalance the build up and all that, it is out that left hand side with the left centre back and Spinazzola that they do make those things happen. And look, the same, like I said, can be said for Karsdorp and Doherty on the other side. The other one is the similarities between Jordan Vertu and Lorenzo Pellegrini, and then Tanguy Ndombele and Giovanni Lo Celso. Now, Vertu and Pellegrini do play sort of different roles in that team, but in similarities to Ndombele and Lo Celso, they could be seen as quite similar. And it's just being that progressive midfield player. You know, whether they're alongside someone like Nicolo Zaniolo or not, that man all of a sudden is the deep line, maybe the deep line playmaker or the kind of enforcer in there who can break up the counter-attacks. But being that progressive midfielder, making those runs in behind, is something that Ndombele did very well for Spurs in and around Christmas, kind of between, I suppose, during the decline in form that we saw from top of the league to 7th. Ndombele, I remember specifically against Burnley, when it was that 4-3-3 we were playing, and then all of a sudden it became a bit of a 4-4-2 out of possession, with Ndombele and Kane being the front two of that press, which we carried really the whole way through the rest of Mourinho's tenure. But in that game against Burnley, we were really struggling, kind of playing Burnley at their own game, which turned out to actually just be our game, playing that really defensive football. And it was kind of made 10-15 minutes left when it was looking to be petering out to a 2-0 draw. And Ndombele pushed on, and he was the man kind of playing in that number 10 role, which Dele Alli had in the past made his own, just making those progressive runs beyond Harry Kane. And it was his, I think he had a chance off one of those runs that led to a corner, which he then won the game with. It's very similar to what Vertu does at Roma. And maybe Paratici's put a lot more thought into this than we realise. Maybe he's properly looked at this Spurs squad and identified this manager as one that could come in and do it. And look, Lo Celso could fit in that Vertu role as well, but I think maybe he could fit more in that Pellegrini role, where he's just kind of going to be that roamer, the roamer, but behind the front line, playing in that number 10 position. He can drop a bit deeper as well, like Lo Celso has been asked to do with Spurs this season. It can be a bit more, kind of a bit more fiery, or have a bit more fight in the middle of there. But he can also be that pretty player in possession. We haven't seen it from Lo Celso really at Spurs, especially not in recent months. But the ability is there. I don't think anybody can deny that. So Lo Celso maybe in that Pellegrini role, and Ndombele maybe in that Vertu role. And like I said, I think that front line of Mkhitaryan, Dzeko and Pedro and what they're doing can be flipped around, and Pedro and their right winger could be Son and our left winger, and vice versa with Mkhitaryan and Bale. We kind of went through that quite a bit on the tactic side of things as well, so we're not going to go too much in that. And like I said as well, Edin Dzeko kind of being that Harry Kane figure. Of course, Harry Kane has a lot more talent and a lot more ability, but it is a lot of similarities there between they would want to play, kind of being that middleman between the front line and the defenders in midfield, and playing that ball into the players in behind. A few concerns that we'd have. Hugo Lloris is one of them, and there's a lot of talk about where he would be next season. There was rumours that Jose Mourinho wanted to bring him to Roma, but they are looking now at Rui Patricio of Wolves. And like we mentioned there at the beginning of the tactics board, Pau Lopez, who was on loan at Spurs a few seasons ago and didn't make a single appearance, has been very impressive for Roma in recent years. And he has been essentially in that back three a fourth defender when they're in possession, really reliant on him having the ball at his feet. Lloris is not good at that. That is the worst part of Spurs. It really is. When Hugo Lloris gets the ball at his feet, the fear that is stricken through the heart of every single Spurs fan is shocking. And I would question whether Lloris is the right man to have in this system. In a similar vein, Davinson Sanchez playing at the back, you need three ball playing defenders like they have in Mancini, Kumbula, Ibanez and Cristante, four there to pick from. Smalling as well, who's really pushed on since joining Roma. Sanchez just doesn't really fit in there. Like I mentioned, the fears of Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, they don't quite have that really strong, kind of gritty enforcer Viking type of player, as we call Højbjerg, in there. So you'd wonder how he's going to fit in there, and as well Harry Winks. Look, I just put Harry Winks there. I don't think he'd fit in any team at the moment, but specifically in this one that is so reliant on midfielders being really progressive. And now the negatives. If I haven't had any already, the negatives of Paulo Fonseca, and brace yourselves because there are some utterly ridiculous things. And the first one is absolutely bizarre. I'm just going to say 6 substitutions, and anybody who's heard this story, let me know in the live chat. Just say yes if you know what I'm about to talk about when I say 6 substitutions, because it cost Roma their place in the Coppa Italia last season. They were playing Spezia in, I think it was the round of 16 of the Coppa Italia. Normal game, it's going on, goes into extra time. All of a sudden, Roma get two red cards in the space of 4 minutes, and they're down to 9 men. I forget what the scoreline is. I think they're either winning or losing 4-2, but it's not entirely relevant to the story. And Shauna knows what I'm talking about. Bin does as well. Godfrey Ganesh. Everybody knows the story. Maybe I don't even need to say it. Cody, good to see you in here saying smash a like for Maddie Hayes. So Roma in extra time, Spezia in the cup. It's 4-2. They're 2 men down, and Fonseca decides he needs to make a sub. He needs to make another sub. We're just going to read through this article that I have here just to properly get this one. He made a 6th substitution without realising. He had made 5 subs. He got 2 red cards in the space of 2 minutes. He made a 6th substitution without even realising. There's an article here from Eurosport that says AS Roma coach Paulo Fonseca said he was unaware of a substitutions mix-up in Tuesday's Coppa Italia defeat by Spezia after making 6 changes when only 5 were allowed. The 6th change came in extra time when Fonseca introduced defender Roger Ibanez for former Chelsea winger Pedro, having already made 5 substitutions in the round of 16 match at the Olympic Stadium. Roma, who also received 2 red cards in the space of 2 minutes, were beaten 4-2 after extra time. When asked about the error, Fonseca told reporters, "If there was a problem that I honestly didn't know about, we'll discuss it internally." He made 6 substitutions without realising. Earlier in the season, it's not the same thing, but he did it again. Earlier in the season, Roma were handed a 3-0 defeat against Hellas Verona in Serie A for fielding an ineligible player. So 2 times last season, 2 times in the space of a season, Paulo Fonseca fielded ineligible players or fielded an extra player and cost games. And Sweaty Cockle says, "Come on, Matt, let's not turn this into a Fonseca bashing." This isn't by any means a Fonseca bashing. I've spent 40 minutes talking about the positives and what he could bring. I just feel we do need to bring that bit of balance because people don't know about him, so I don't want to bring just the positives. We need to properly balance this out. Derek says, "Big up, Matty. Ireland #1 Spurs news channel. Please tell David that." Ethelson and Niall as well. Thank you very much for your kind comments. So that is the first negative that we have of Fonseca, costing his team 2 games by fielding ineligible players. Another one is his failures in the games against the big teams in his last 2 seasons at Roma. Across 24 games against the big teams in 2 seasons, he won just 4. Now, there were some incredible games. He had a 3-3 draw against Milan earlier in this season. He, to some extent, was Juve's bogey team, which is a very, very good thing as well. If we could become Man City's bogey team, I think we'd really enjoy that, or we kind of have been in recent years to some extent. So that record against the big teams, not exactly encouraging for us. Defensive insecurity, which again we kind of touched on the reasons that could be the youthful centre backs, but it could as well just be him not being a very, very good coach. Derek says context is important. It certainly is. Francisco not happy with Saka and Mourinho, a bit late for that one. Mr. K says I actually like Fonseca. He looks like fun. He's an entertainer. He is an entertainer. A lot of Spurs' goals this season, or the ones we've conceded, have been from individual errors. The very same for Roma. 10 individual errors leading to goals last season. Of the 58 they conceded in the league, like I said, 10 of them were individual errors. Michael with a $10 super chat. Michael, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. It says, Eurosport say, seeing his teams when they can express themselves at their best is a joy, able to build something good and to extract value from the players he coaches. And that is a very positive thing. I haven't seen that quote, Michael, so thank you very much for bringing that. And thank you for the super chat as well. Seeing his teams when they can express themselves at their best is a joy, able to build something good and to extract value from the players he coaches. That is what Spurs need. That is absolutely what Spurs need. And maybe that could fall into what I'm talking about here with these individual errors. 10 leading to goals. 2 from Morante, 2 from Pau Lopez. They're 2 goalkeepers. 1 from Smalling, 1 from Ibanez, 1 from Mancini, 1 from Fazio. They're 4 centre-backs. 1 from Vertu and 1 from Fusato as well. Now, this doesn't include own goals by Ibanez, Spinazzola and Cristante and 5 penalty goals conceded. So you could, in some roundabout way, argue that 18 of their 58 goals conceded in the league were down to their own players simply just not being good enough. That is a concern Spurs have in terms of quality of the squad, especially at the back as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Fonseca kind of copes with that one, if he is named the Spurs manager. Similarities to Jose Mourinho, another potential negative there. We spoke about Vitor Frade's tactical periodization, but the key difference there for me is in recent years Jose Mourinho has leaned much more towards one of his 7 core principles, which is the team who has the ball has fear. Fonseca is the complete opposite. He likes playing possession based football. There's a few questions here that I have as well, which I'll be interested to see the feeling in the chat. With a simple yes or no answer, do you think Paulo Fonseca will command respect from the players he coaches at Spurs? Mainly looking at the squad that is already there, because I think players that we could potentially bring in are a very different story, and one that we can't really touch on just yet. Avinash, thank you for subscribing. Do you think Paulo Fonseca would command respect from the players he coaches? And my biggest concern in this one is with Harry Kane. Even with Antonio Conte coming in, we were hearing Kane still wanted to leave. If Fonseca's coming in, well, there's no chance he'll want to stay. Absolutely no chance whatsoever. I still do feel as though he'll be forced to stay with that 3-year contract, or the 6-year contract he signed 3 years ago with 3 years left in it. A few comments there, Peter as well saying no. Hyena says yes. Scott says not a chance. Shauna says no as well. That is a concern. He's not a big name. These players seem to have way too much bearing on who the manager is. Apparently they didn't want Conte because of the intensity of the training. Maybe that's why Spurs pulled out. I personally don't think it is, and from what I've personally heard, it isn't. But that is what a lot of people are thinking. Cody makes a very good point here. We need to bring in players who will respect the manager. The players are a huge problem. That is very true. It's not a manager that the players will respect. It's players who will respect their manager. Very good point as always from Cody. The majority of people there saying no. Scott says, what is there to respect? Well, watch the first 40 minutes of the stream, Scott. There's quite a bit that we spoke about there. What kind of pull will he have in the transfer market, if any? Again, we're going to talk about a thread on Twitter with potential targets for Spurs. What kind of pull would he have? Marcel Sabitzer wants to leave RB Leipzig, according to The Athletic. It could be available for £15 million, but is he going to want to join a team in the Europa Conference League? Well, if their manager was Pochettino or Conte, maybe. If their manager was Fonseca, I think it is a lot less likely there. And other concerns. First one, we are replacing Jose Mourinho with the man that Jose Mourinho is replacing at Roma, and we simply do not know what to expect. We can look into him as much as possible. We can, analyze him tactically for 30, 40 minutes. We can talk about his recruitment, his defensive structure, everything. At the end of the day, he hasn't managed in the Premier League. I don't think anyone here can say we've consistently seen him play and know about him personally. We have to just go off what we're hearing and what we're told and hope that it's an accurate reflection of what we'll get. But the be all and end all of it is we simply do not know what to expect. Before we get into these few Twitter threads, like I said, please do hit the like button if you are enjoying the stream. We're on 157 with over 500 people watching, so please do hit that like button and see if we can get to 200. Make sure to subscribe as well if you are new. We are on the road to 10k before the season starts. We're up at about 8.6 thousand subscribers right now, which is crazy to see. So please do hit that subscribe button if you are enjoying this content and want more of it throughout the summer. And this first Twitter thread is from at MAWLJU. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it is linked down in the description below. I'm just going to read through it, not really give too much context, but because we're pushing an hour already. But he says, here's why I want Paulo Fonseca to be the new Spurs manager. First of all, Fonseca actually took a 10th place and relegation threatened Pacos de Ferreira to 3rd place and Champions League qualification the next season. The season after Fonseca left, they finished last in the league. In January this year, Fonseca's Roma had created the most qualitative chances this season of all clubs in the top 5 leagues in Europe. They also outscored Juventus in the 1920 season. 3. Fonseca has 9 trophies, just like Conte. Ten Hag has won 5. Pochettino has won 2. Gasperini has won 0. Fonseca is also the youngest manager of those mentioned. Now, I do think it's worth adding that he's won 9 trophies. 7 of them were in the Ukraine with Shakhtar Donetsk. 4. When Fonseca joined Shakhtar, they hadn't won the league for 2 years. Fonseca won it 3 times in a row. This season, 2021, after he's left, they finished 2nd. He also won the Ukrainian Cup 3 times in a row with a 7-0 goal difference in finals. They have not won it since Fonseca left. 5. In Braga, Fonseca won the Portuguese Cup for the first time in 50 years. 6. He hates defensive football. He's all about attacking. We will actually enjoy watching our team play again. And 7. Some people say Fonseca is unproven in English football. Of course he is. But he has at least managed clubs in Portugal, Ukraine and Italy, unlike some other candidates who only manage senior clubs in one single country. And Fonseca can actually speak great English. That is linked down in the description below. Another one from at THFC Anton, another thread about how this Spurs team would look, kind of delving a bit more tactically, which I suppose we've spoken a lot about. There's some similarities from what I'm looking here. So we will leave that one. But potential targets for Spurs. He said the positions we'll have to look for is 2 ball-playing centre-backs, preferably 1 left-footed, 1 right wing-back and a creative right wing. So as potential targets, Evan Ndicka, the 22-year-old Frenchman for Eintracht Frankfurt, would fit into the role of a ball-playing centre-back quite easily. He's capable of playing out from the back using short passing and he's an overall great defender. Ball-playing centre-back number 2 is Joachim Andersen. Andersen is a commanding centre-back who's also seen as a leader. He is capable of playing out from the back, but I still have doubts. He usually likes to try long balls, but hopefully Fonseca will be able to make him look for the short pass more often. Super chat there from Lucas Klein with the 50. I think it's Danish krona. I apologise if that is wrong. But he says, will Fonseca's belief in tactical periodization mean more problems with players' fitness and neglect of sports science as under Jose Mourinho? Look, there are the concerns of those things kind of overlapping of the problems we had under Jose kind of refining their place in the Spurs team. But in terms of players' fitness, I think we would have to look more at how Fonseca looks at the combining the physical and technical side of the game a bit more. So Jose Mourinho's team might be very fit, but not in a footballing situation. When they get mentally fatigued, the decision-making goes out the window. We've seen that so often with Eric Dyer and conceding those late goals. But with Fonseca, because their fitness work involves them being on the ball and having to make those decisions, maybe the physical fitness will be in a similar position, but mental fitness could be completely different and probably better in this Fonseca team. Neglected sports science. Look, I don't know too much about sports science, and I'm not going to sit here and just waffle to you in order to give an answer. So I can't quite answer that part of the question, but I do fully understand that there will be concerns of similar issues under Jose Mourinho. But look, again, we have to have that hope that it'll be different. But Lucas, thank you very much for the super chat. I do appreciate it. The right wing back that Anton suggests is Riedel Baku. The 23-year-old has had a very impressive 2021 campaign at Wolfsburg. He's a huge threat offensively, capable of scoring and setting up goals. He's also very versatile and is capable of playing as a midfielder and across the entire right side. And then as a right winger, a creative right winger, Matheus Pereira from West Brom. The Brazilian has had an impressive season even while playing for a pretty defensive relegation side. He's a player who's amazing at dribbling and also creates a lot of chances for his teammates. He fits very well into the playmaker role. So some signings there that Anton is so kindly putting forward for Fabio Paratici. Jack Nicky, good to see you in the live chat, says, I do remember FD saying Roma would be horrible last season given the aging squad and lack of investment, yet he made Roma one of the best teams in the first half of the season last season. And as Rowan Chris and Mr. K said, that is a very good point. again, maybe an eerie similarity to Spurs. They started the season really well and kind of trailed off from there. But look, I agree. You have to look at if we're going to balance the positives and negatives, the first half of last season you have to take as a positive as much as the second half of last season was. I look like IH says that's reminding me of us with Jose, and that certainly is the case. But look, we're pushing 50 minutes now, so I think we are going to wrap it up there. There's an article from Alistair Gold that I have left linked down in the description below that I'd planned on reading, but this took a lot longer than I expected. So please do go down and read that article if you want to know more on kind of the context of Fonseca and Paratici as they join forces at Spurs in the coming days. Look, if you have enjoyed this stream, please do make sure to hit that like button on your way out. We're on 187 likes. Let's get that to 200 before the stream ends. And subscribe as well if you are new, like I said, for more content like this as we build up to the appointment of Paulo Fonseca and the Tottenham Hotspur Transfer Talk series, which will be back in full flow this summer as we are in for a very busy window in terms of outgoings and incomings. So please do subscribe if you do want to make sure to keep up to date with all of that, and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we upload or go live. To the 530 who are still watching, to the 4,000 who've tuned in over the last 50 minutes, thank you so much for your support. Hopefully you learned something new about Paulo Fonseca today. If you did, let me know in the comments. Let me know one thing you learned, and if you still think it, let me know your thoughts on him, if he will be a good or bad option for Spurs. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.